Have you ever pretended to know something just not to be embarrassed? That's what happened to me when I agreed to do a collab with my friend Jerry. She suggested that we do a technique called Joseph's coat. And before answering her, I quickly looked it up on Google because I had no idea what that is. But then when I saw it, I realized, oh, I've done this before. I just didn't know it had a name. And why Joseph's coat? I assume it's because of Joseph's story from the Bible and his colorful coat. When I thought about the technique though, I wondered how can I do it in a different way to make it my own? And I thought of using my gel plate. First I applied black acrylic paint all over the plate and took my first impression. Then I chose a few colors of bright acrylic paint and applied them on my plate. I placed my lily stencil on top and taking my black print that I already made, pressed the rice paper through all the stencil openings. The color transferred perfectly, and I got my first Joseph's coat impression. While the stencil was still on, I took a baby wipe and wiped off any excess paint left between the stencil, as that would give me a more precise impression. Then I lifted the stencil and let the paint pattern dry. In the meantime, I wanted to see if the same technique could work with blue. So I took a round gel plate, Brayer blue paint, and took my first impression. Then following the same procedure, I spread other colors on the plate. Placed my helix flower stencil, which fits perfectly on this 8-inch round plate, and pressed my blue circle onto it. When I lift it up, it confirms the beauty of this technique. I clean again with a baby wipe through the openings, lift the stencil, and let it dry. I go back to the other plate as my image has dried and I apply black paint all over the plate. I place a new rice paper on top of the black paint and set it aside to dry. It is important to let it fully dry so the black paint lifts the dried colorful paint underneath. I do the same with the round plate by applying blue paint and set both to dry. While the plates are drying, I start working on my art journal background because it's important for me not to only show you how to make prints, but to show you how to use your prints in your art. Of course, you can cut out the backgrounds and mount them on cards, but I will show you how to use them in an art journal. And since today's story is about Joseph, I wanted to create a dreamy galaxy background to represent Joseph's dreams. So using watered down acrylic paint, I start swishing the different colors around with a paintbrush. The paint needs to be very watery that it flows across the page and creates the galaxy look. While I'm painting, I want to tell you why I connected so much to Joseph's story. Joseph was one of Jacob's 12 sons. He was his father's favorite, and so Jacob gave him a colorful coat, which made his brothers very jealous. Joseph also had prophetic dreams about stars in which 11 stars are bowing to him as the ruler of the clan. This interpretation makes his brothers angry, and that's why out of jealousy and anger, his brothers trick him and sell him to Egyptian slave traders. And that one event changes the course of Joseph's life and all of his descendants. But more on that later, because I want to show you how to create the stars on the night sky, like in Joseph's dream. I watered down some white India ink and splattered it with Tim Holtz splatter brush, as I wanted small splatters. You can also use a toothbrush for this technique. Now it's time to reveal my prints. I lift the first one, and it's just gorgeous. I can literally imagine either of these prints cut into beautiful card backgrounds. I also lift the circle print, and the image is stunning as well. I decide to use these two helices in my art journal as they look like stars. I cut around both patterns and glue them in my art journal slightly off the edge. Then I glue the leftover pattern across the rest of the page. To enhance the beauty of the helices, I use dark blue acrylic paint and create a shadow around the edges. The paint has to be watered down and blended with a small paintbrush. While I paint the shadows, I want to continue the story of Joseph. He not only had prophetic dreams, but he can also interpret them. So although his dreams originally enslaved him, interpreting dreams in Egypt saved his life, becoming the right-hand man to the Pharaoh. And it's in those dream interpretations that Joseph not only saves himself, but saves all of Egypt from famine. And when his brothers come to Egypt begging for food during the famine, Joseph not only gives them food, but he forgives them. There's a few more details that I add to my journal. Some doodling with a white marker, which helps me outline the helices and the edges of the page. I add some script stamping with silver pigment ink for extra texture, glue a sentiment, and some dragonflies that I cut out of my downloadable digital pages that I sell on Etsy. Joseph's story is a true testament to his kindness. In the same way Joseph interpreted dreams, we interpret our own stories through art. Remembering Joseph's colorful coat will remind me how I interpreted Joseph's coat technique in my own unique way, and how Jerry interpreted this technique in this video right here.